Okay, so a fraction has two parts. The top of the fraction is called the numerator, and the bottom of the fraction is called the denominator. So we're going to work with numerators and denominators. We also have two different types of fractions that we deal with. One type of fraction is called a proper fraction. An example of a proper fraction is 3/5 or 8/15. In these kind of fractions, the numerator is less than the denominator. Okay, numerator less than denominator. The other type of fraction that we have is called an improper fraction. Examples of improper fractions are 7/3 or 21/9. In this situation, the numerator is larger than the denominator. All right, so the numerator is greater than denominator. Okay. Okay, so proper fractions, the numerator is less than the denominator. In an improper fraction, the numerator is larger than or greater than the denominator. When we deal with improper fractions, we can change their format to what's called a mixed number. So a mixed number is a combination of an integer and a fraction. So for example, when we look back and we look at 7/5, we can ask ourselves, how many times does 5 go into 7? Well, how many times does 5 go into 7? One time. Then we ask ourselves, how much is left over? Or what is the remainder? Well, if 5 goes into 7 once, 5 times 1 is 5, so there would be 2 left over. So the way that we would write 7/5 as a mixed number is we would say it's 1 and 2/5. Okay, so we ask ourselves, how many times does the denominator go into the numerator? Then we ask, how much is left over? So let's see a couple more examples of this. All right, so how many times does the denominator go in the numerator? How much is left over? So what if we have 21/4? Well, 4 goes into 21, so 4 times 5 is 20, so 4 goes into 21 5 times. So if 4 goes into 21 5 times, how much is left over? Well, if there's 20, that means that there's 1 left over. So we put a 1 here and we write it over the denominator. So 21/4 is the same thing as 5 1/4. So let's try one more. Let's do 38/9. Well, how many times does 9 go into 38? Well, 9 times 4 is 36, so 9 would go in 4 times. How much would be left over? Well, if it's 36 and that's 38, there would be 2 left over. So we would write 4 2/9. Okay, so 4 2/9 is the same thing as 38/9. They are equivalent fractions. The last thing we want to talk about here is, what about if I have a mixed number and I want to go back to an improper fraction? So suppose I have 3 1/2. what we do is we multiply these two together, 2 times 3, and then we add what's in the numerator here. So in this situation, we would do 2 times 3, which is 6, and then we would do 6 plus 1, which is equal to 7. So then we would write our improper fraction as 7 over 2. We use this as our denominator. All right, there's our denominator. So 3 1/2 is the same thing as 7 over 2. So let's do another one. 5 2/3. So first we do 5 times 3, so we multiply. So we do 5 times 3, and we get 15. And then we add 2. So we do 15 plus 2, and we get 17. And then we would write our improper fraction as 17 over 3, because this is the denominator for our fraction. So 5 2/3 is equivalent to 17/3.